Well, hey there, gardening friends. Welcome back to my little gardening show. Wanted to take you along and give you another update on my seedlings. I think we've been at about 30 days now. I'll have to go back and check the videos. But we've been able to sprout quite a few things here in the last month. Let's take a look. So I've been showing these peppers about every night. They are looking really good. Eggplants are in the middle. Beginning to at a point where I'm eventually going to have to transplant them. And there's a little ant. So the last couple days, I've had a little war with the ants. It started kind of this past weekend. At least the second round did. Hit their little nest with the thieves cleaner. I set bait traps all around their little hive, all that good stuff. Soaked it with Raid to the point that the outlet was sizzling a little bit. Hey Tom, what's up, man? So anyway, tonight I come down to the grow room when I get off work, and I noticed they were vacating the outlet and moving towards, well, I'll just show you. So they were coming out, streaming all along here, going down the wall and coming up the cord here, and basically had made a little nest underneath my tray here. Like they were putting all kinds of food and all kinds of stuff, eggs, whatever. Anyway, I couldn't believe how many ants there were. And it was an organized effort. I mean, they were just streaming continuous lines. So I was like, all right, that's it. One, I should have taken the advice of, TA Stingbat and done some boric acid. Soaked it in like sugar and boric acid, like cotton balls or something, to get rid of them that way. But I didn't do that. I used Raid and traps. The traps didn't work. They went all around the traps, but they didn't touch the bait that was in them. And so anyway, lesson learned there. But they were streaming out, so I broke out the wet dry vac and started right where they were relocating and snuck up on them, flipped it on, and sucked them all up, sucked up all their little nest, everything that they had relocated to underneath the underneath this tray, and then just started sucking them all up, caught them, and then caught up with them on the little trail and just went all the way back, and then for about 20 minutes straight and just camped out here sucking up more ants. And there's another one that's trying to find its way back. And there's very few now, but and then finally got to the outlet. So you put the boric acid and jelly on their little trails, the chemtrails, because how it works, they leave a little bit of a scent, or they mark their trail so that the other ants can follow it. I ended up getting them, sucking them all back, and then hung out at the outlet, took that all out again, and just tried to get as many as I could. Again, spent about 20 minutes. And then finally after that, what I did was unplug the outlet. I took my can of Raid and I soaked that thing. I soaked all around. I soaked in the crevices. I left a puddle of it on the wood underneath the outlet just in case there were any, they'd end up going through there or whatever. Got them real good. In fact, I put so much Raid in that outlet that I thought I was going to start an electrical fire. I mean, it was just going zzz, like you could hear it humming, as it's frying stuff. Yeah, I gotta get the queen. So boric acid and jelly, huh? Maybe that'd be the next thing then. I'll smear some boric acid and jelly. Yeah. What I probably need to do, I mean, so I'm in the basement and I'm on this utility closet is on the wall of the house that faces the yard. And so the nest has got to be probably in the ground somewhere over in that area. Like I said, I got quite a few of them today. Between the last two times and this time, the fact that they were relocating everything, I think I got a good chunk of them. And then again, loading that outlet up with poison. Um, but I think I'll probably have to go the boric acid route ultimately and take TA Stingbat's advice here, who is on the channel chatting with us. So anyway, I digress. My plight with the ants. Other than that, things are going well. Again, almost 100% germination. I still got peppers coming up. The variety that I got from the Ohio Seed Company or whatever, it's finally starting to come up. Everything's looking good, pretty good. No sprouts yet from the peppers that I started, which is fine. That's expected. I was really surprised it's taken like 2 weeks to get to this point. I don't remember the seeds taking that long to sprout, but I don't know. But what I wanted to show you tonight was my romaine lettuce. We started this box this past weekend, so it's been like, I think, almost 3 days. 2.5 days, whatever. And we've got romaine lettuce that has sprouted. So all along this row, my second row, my third row, fourth row, and the fifth row is all coming up now. So that's cool that it's coming up that quick. So now I can remove I can keep that off of there. Everything's still moist because I've soaked that with pretty well with water over the last couple days. So we got another lettuce box started, which will work out because once the oh, that's cool. Yeah, I still need to start tomato seeds. The challenge though is that at least the last couple days, when I've had time, there's been other things that have come up. I'll show you what came up tonight. Well, other than the ants and kind of jacking around with all that. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, sunlight is amazing. My brother-in-law brought over some stuff. He's moving. So I got a few boxes. We got rid of the recliner chair and a bunch of stuff that was in here, but now we've got more stuff, at least temporarily. Here's the couch that the cat peed on. In chair, he's peed on this repeatedly, so we're just getting rid of it. And then we got a bunch of like books and stuff that we can't really get rid of right now because Goodwill and all those places that take donations are kind of shut down right now. But I got my other box of yeah, Tom. That's hilarious. Anyway, the butter crunch is coming along really well. and we'll probably be ready to start harvesting some of that next week, potentially. Anyway, all that to say that when I've had an opportunity or something, we've had stuff come up, or basically doing stuff for other people, spending time, whatever. That, and I've been live streaming a lot more, so that's taken some time too. Though I am trying to get some on some of them. Been trying to get some planting done and all that, so it's all good. We're having fun. That's what it's about. I hope this weekend I want to try to get a couple more of these boxes and get them set up. I've got a video I just haven't posted it yet of setting this box up, and going through the prep and setting it up mint lighter style, adding the mineral mix and all that good stuff. So I have to get that posted at some point. Still got a lot of other things to do. I owe Frank some seeds. I gotta get that in the mail yet. Maybe forget some time. If not tonight, tomorrow will be my deadline. I'll put a little deadline on it. Tomorrow, no later than tomorrow, I'll get the seeds sorted and sent out to him. But anyway, it's the covering, right? So there's a gardening video. You guys have probably seen it on YouTube. It's called Back to Eden. And it's basically a documentary about this guy named Paul Gauci out in Washington State, who he's pretty religious, and is real open about his faith and stuff. But his big deal is, I guess, whole deal is like the things that like God has shown him and how to grow food like God's way and stuff, right? And just real observant, pretty connected to his property, observing things and all that. And he's real big proponent on the covering, having a covering on the soil at all times. And he grew up, in California and stuff, and they tilled and basically gardened the hard way. And then when he moved out in Washington State, basically facing, an issue with his well and not having enough water, and just wondering how on earth he's going to, termites or cockroaches. Got a story about that one. But anyway, he's trying to figure out how he's going to start a garden, and keep it watered and all that. And basically, he goes into the woods and the forest around his place, and basically the Lord kind of shows him like, hey, it's been, forest is growing fine. You just, basically, let's get a cover on the garden. So he had a little orchard or apple orchard he started and stuff, and he ended up bringing like 12, 18 inches of wood chips in over time. He experimented with several different covers, but brought all the wood chips in, and now like he's got just pretty awesome soil. He has garden tours, I think that start in June. Yeah, I would think that too. And actually, so at my other place in Indiana, the year before we moved, before all that happened, I actually got wood chips from the municipal dump or whatever, or the natural waste site that was, not too far away from the house. But basically what they do is they take all the trees and things, that the tree companies would bring in their wood chips and all that, and they had a huge amount. I mean, this thing's probably like 20, 25 foot high, and you could just basically pull up beside it and shovel in as much as you could take. So I got a big trailer load, actually a couple trailer loads, and put it in my garden and got all that, going. And yeah, if you mix them in, definitely it does affect things a little bit, and you have to, amend it with a little bit of nitrogen to offset that, because basically the microorganisms are trying to break down the wood chips, and it takes a while. But anyway, when I did that, hey Stone, what's up, man? When I did that, I ended up getting American cockroaches, like, were in my garden, like, all over. They didn't get up to the house. They were primarily in my compost bin in the back, and with the wood chips and stuff, because I built a raised bed beside the garden that was like 2 foot tall with some old electrical cross members, like beams that I got from a guy that worked for the electric company. They decommissioned old posts, and he got a bunch of the cross members that were probably like 30 years old, and they were perfect. They had the holes and stuff, that they had the electric buckles or whatever in, so I could put rebar down. They fit rebar perfect, and was able to build a real nice little raised bed and filled it with the wood chips and all that stuff. And I had, like I said, all these cockroaches. I ended up having to use the boric acid powder, or some kind of powder. I think it was boric acid. Anyway, to try to get rid of them in there, and took a while. But anyway, going back to the covering, whether it's wood chips, leaves, something. That was one of the things that was he saw as a secret. This Paul Gauci out in Washington State, the whole back to Eden gardening method, and would just add to that cover every year, or not every year. Once he got like the 18 inches in, or 12 inches of wood chips, he just let it sit and decompose. And in the apple orchard, I guess the science behind it is the roots from the apple trees, being a living root, attracted all the mycorrhizal fungi, which and helped break down stuff, and basically just built his soil up to where, he's had people come out and test it. It's like a perfect 7.0, and he can grow pretty much anything, and it does well, and it's real loose and pliable. But he's been there like 40 years, right? And kind of blessed to be in that situation. But anyway, interesting documentary if you haven't seen it yet, which I think most of you guys probably have already seen it. But if you haven't seen it yet, it's definitely worth watching. One thing we're thinking about doing to take care of the Canadian thistle is to actually tarp. Get like a silage tarp or a heavy tarp and tarp that area for a couple weeks, to smother it out. That's what we're thinking about doing to try to get, a handle on it. So that's an idea, and I know there's a lot of there's gardeners that do that. They use silage tarps to manage their property to keep it weed free. Cardboard might work. Yeah, I mean, if you get other plants you don't want to kill, then you probably have to dig it out. I don't know, or use Roundup. Risk using a chemical or something, and all that good stuff. But for us, I think, given we got leaf mulch over the garden right now, and it's Canadian thistle that's growing up through it, we're probably going to use a silage tarp, or I'm just going to go out there some weekend with the kids with some shovels, and we're going to try to dig out as much of it as we can, and then just try to weed, consistently to stay on top of it. Some of the stuff, if you can keep cutting it, like, it'll keep putting up a shoot and all that. But if you can keep cutting it, eventually you can exhaust it, where it will die off because it's not able to produce the foliage so that it can do photosynthesis and all that and live. It probably the other place we use cardboard we got from like it was like an appliance store in town where we got a bunch of refrigerator boxes. My buddy did, and brought those out, laid them down first, and then put cover mulch on top of it. And before that, though, I took a pot and used it as a template, and with a X-Acto knife cut holes into it where I wanted to plant everything, and that worked out great. I kept it pretty weed free, and then by the next year, that cardboard was totally gone. It totally had decomposed and was incorporated into the ground, but it worked for the season to keep the weeds down. We put a weed barrier down last year on the tomatoes, and it seemed to work pretty well, and didn't have a whole lot of problems with pest, which was good. And I don't know if it was the type of membrane it was, but that seemed to work well. But anyway, the whole idea of a covering, right? Getting something on the ground to protect it from like ultraviolet rays of the sun, soil erosion, just the elements. Kind of insulate things a little better. Even with the seeds there, it seemed like most seeds you gotta cover them to get things to grow. But having a little cover on the ground seems to work out really well, in the garden. So I don't know. We haven't, and I've been bad. I haven't made really any videos about the garden here lately. We went out the other night to fertilize the cold weather stuff, and everything looked really good. Seemed to be really loving the greenhouse. Yeah. The other thing I've seen, you can get vinegar. It's not like the vinegar you get at the store. It's a lot more potent, and it works just as well as a weed killer. You can. I'm trying to think. The one channel that I watched, that I Am Organic Gardening. Yeah. You have to order it special, but they sell it, and it works just as well as a regular weed killer. He did some demonstration where he sprayed weeds, and it definitely shocked the roots and killed the plant. Yeah, and I don't know, Tom, what kind of vinegar you use, if it was like a higher potent one, but this one was like a special, he had to special order it. It wasn't like the kind of vinegar you can get at the store. It was like a lot higher concentration, a lot more potent, I guess, but it seemed to work. And then I've seen them where, again, whether the tarps or they're using some kind of thick paper or where. Yeah, a deck's cool. That's hilarious. Um, there's a lot. Oh shoot. There's a fair amount of options out there for managing the weeds and trying to get a handle on it. The big thing is I don't think you ever have like a weed-free garden. If you do, it's because you got a pretty good system of managing weeds, and that's really the key, is figuring out how you're going to manage them. Getting a Stirrupo, which the Mittlighter site, the growfood.org or whatever, they sell the Stirrupo heads. I think you can probably get the poles through them as well. They're the handles as well. If not, they sell them at probably Lowe's and Home Depot. I've gotten Stirrupo before. It's sharp on both sides, and what's nice about it is you can kind of just chip away chip the ground, run it through the wood or ground. I will see you, Stone. Thanks for popping in, man. Now, one other method that we didn't cover as far as controlling weeds is you can till to disrupt them, and just run a little tiller through. But the key there is you got to clear them out. Like once you break them out of the ground, you actually got to rake that stuff away. Otherwise, it's going to take root again. My dad, that's kind of his preferred method, other than using Roundup, is he likes to till. So if a space starts getting infested, he'll just break the tiller out and start busting it all up. And it was in some ways comical. Maybe it was last year, because that seemed to be the go-to. Like, well, it's got weeds, no problem. We'll just break the tiller out again. And bust all that up, which is okay, but eventually, year after year of tilling, in multiple rounds of it each season, you can destroy the structure of the soil where it becomes kind of like powder, and which I know with again, we talk mint lighter and stuff, the soil not really mattering and being an anchor, but I don't want the topsoil to like blow away or be so depleted that it's just pretty well worthless. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what we do with everything this year to try to keep things going. And I am super motivated. I'm more excited about this year than probably the. Yeah, and the torch, like I saw, there's a couple of like Johnny's and Never Sink Farm Tools. I guess they sell, kind of commercial grade flame weeders that you hook up to a tank and you can run over the ground. And I guess they'll use tarps in the spring, or they'll heat up their hoop houses, so that stuff will germinate, and then as the weeds and everything sprouts, and they run the weeder over it, to try to get a good batch of them before they do any of the other bed prep, and that does work. There's a lot of different ways. Other things, you could build raised boxes, and go with the sand sawdust mix or some kind of other growing medium to try to keep the weeds at bay. Where maybe you let them grow, you don't really care, but because your boxes are kind of above ground, and you just end up mowing or trimming those parts of the garden or whatever. There's a lot of different things. More than one way to skin the cat, so to speak. But having a good system, being out there consistently is really the key. Probably the most, and I always go back to that little backyard garden I had in Indiana, but that was like the most enjoyable garden because, I had a little stirrupo. We did cover mulches year after year, did minimal tilling. I had a broad fork that I prepped the beds because, this is only like a 15 by like 25 foot space I had, so it was pretty manageable, and just real easy to work with. And anything that did pop up, I'd be strolling through, after work or whatever, and just take the stirrupo and cut it off, and if it would grow back, cut it off again, and just keep doing that until it didn't grow back anymore, and was able to keep it pretty much weed free. Control it pretty well. And that's what a lot of the commercial farms do. If they're not using tarps and stuff like that, they've got a system where they've got people with special tools and stuff running implements down the rows and basically clearing out all the new growth that might sprout or whatever. and just staying on top of it is kind of the way they do it. So, anywho, now that we got the lettuce sprouting and the peppers are well on their way, the next step will be, this week to get the peppers potted up. Need to get them potted up and established, and then I need to get them out to the greenhouse. And probably going to require some, yeah, yeah. Oh, shoot. Yeah, Roundup Ready corn, Roundup Ready tomatoes, and whatever we can get Roundup Ready, right? But I want to get, my goal would be this weekend to get all the peppers potted up and out to the greenhouse, where they can basically spend the rest of their time growing and all of that, and probably going to have some heat out at the greenhouse. My sister, going out the other day, my sister's growing all kinds of stuff, so Dad's got a heater in her house because she's trying to get flowers to sprout, and I think the temp in there was like 70 degrees, and it was like probably 35 to 38 degrees yesterday, late afternoon, sun was going down, so it's pretty chilly. But inside her house about 70 degrees. Inside mine it was 50, and which wasn't bad given I had no external heat source or anything. But if I bring the peppers out there, we'll have to keep it warmer. I would want to keep it warmer than 40 degrees or whatever. I would want to keep it at least 50 degrees in the evenings, and then if the temperatures were a lot warmer during the day, which they probably would be, probably reach about 70, 80 degrees with the way the sun's coming in, that would be pretty ideal for them. And I got a lot more space out there to have the plants, so that's my goal, get it all out there. Yeah, it's probably a little warmer up there, isn't it? Especially if heat's rising, or depending on how the freezer is, the heat from the compressor. But I need to get this stuff out of here so I can get more stuff started. And then I want to try to clean up this space here where my worm bin and stuff is, so I can take advantage of these lights that are over here. So anyway, lots to do. Never a dull moment. I could spend several hours down here and just kind of be tooling around. So everybody that's watching, what is everyone else up to? What do you have growing right now? Yeah, I need to start them. I will start them no later than this weekend. I'm hoping this week. Yeah, peas. I got a couple different ones. I've still got some Lincoln peas left over that I got from M.I. Gardner. These seeds are actually from last year. I didn't get around to planting them last year because we actually didn't do peas last year, which my kids were real bummed about that. But I don't know. Last year just wasn't a real good season for about half the garden. I don't know what the deal was. Oh my goodness. That's good. I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. Yeah, he's got some pretty good deals. I don't know where he sources all his stuff from, but I mean, you can't 99 cents a packet. You really can't beat that. You know, if you're ordering from anywhere else, it's because of loyalty or, you know, nostalgia or whatever, or maybe they carry something that he doesn't, but he's got a pretty good selection and, you know, pretty good deal on that stuff. However, this was the first year I didn't order anything from him. Since he started his little seed company, you know, and yeah, seeds, if you store them right, they last for a long time. I know there's what that seed bank, it's in Norway, I think, or Svitsvold, or what is it called? It's basically seed vault, and I think there's maybe a couple of them, but that's the one that's pretty well known, and they've got. Yeah, you know, I haven't watched any of his videos here recently, but I wouldn't be surprised. And I know Michigan was one of the, at least here lately, has been one of the more aggressive states on restricting people and locking stuff down. Yeah. Which kind of, you know, there's talk in Ohio about how they're going to try to open things up potentially. You know, people are hopeful that they're going to open things up. Yeah, I don't know. He's probably going to make YouTube videos, I imagine. And he may end up doing like indoor stuff because I know he's got kind of a hydroponics setup in his basement. I should check in with him and see how things are going over there. But I know, you know, for us here in Ohio, the governor, I think, talked today in his address, and yeah, it's scary. We take a lot of like freedom we have for granted. You know it. I mean, really, at any point, you know, things could change overnight. And I think the one thing too is it's like people are so, and this is a generality. Not everybody's like this, but in general, like because of how society is and has been for so long, are people just seeking convenience and like comfort and you know, the path of least resistance and all of that. They're willing to sacrifice their freedom to stay comfortable and to stay safe, you know, like if they're afraid and stuff like that. Um, which that's kind of human nature, right? But I guess the thing is that you know, a lot of times the other thing too is we become like desensitized to a lot of things that happen around us because we see like, you know, kind of shocking news all the time, or we see stuff and it doesn't like horrify us or you know, shock us, right? And we're kind of apathetic to it. So it's one of those things is like you see like even these other states that are like struggling with all that. There's kind of a sense like where you're removed. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that sometime, Tom. But kind of this, where it's like, well, it's not affecting me, so it's no big deal type deal mentality, or one of the things that's going on in the workplace, um, to some extent, is people that are skeptical of this whole coronavirus thing. Like, well, do you know anybody that has it? It's like, well, not my immediate family, or not around here. And part of it's because they did a good job of getting ahead of it, so that it couldn't. It's not like New York or Michigan or these high population places, where um, you got these mass infection rates and stuff, and where it's real and all that. So there's a sense like everybody's kind of disconnected, and I guess where I'm going with is like with the whole freedom thing and all that. It's kind of like people don't, because of like apathy and stuff like that. Even if stuff started happening, I think people would be a little slow to respond to it as long as it wasn't affecting them directly. And it's kind of like stories you hear about World War II, like when the Nazis started taking over places, or they started persecuting different groups of people, and whatnot, and other people didn't, yeah, like you said, take responsibility, or take it seriously, until now it's affecting them personally, and now they're crying for help and whatnot, and by that time it was too late, right? They didn't have any kind of ability to resist, or it just overtook them, and so you could see how that could happen, in today's society, with how apathetic and kind of convenience driven people are, right? Yeah. And I'll confess, I'm one of those people, right? I tend to be pretty low key anyway, and have a pretty high tolerance for stuff. There's not a lot that kind of ruffles my feathers, or gets me excited or fired up per se. You know, um, so I don't know. It's just we're living in interesting times. So it will be kind of interesting to see how things play out. All that to say that in Ohio, like I think today in the press conference, like basically the governor was saying, yeah, I think trying to get people used to the idea that yeah, we're shooting for May, to open things up type deal, but it's not going to be a complete opening, right? Yeah, have to check that out. It's going to be a kind of a slow, they're not going to reverse course on everything all at once. It's not like magically, May 4th or whatever the date is, that everything's back to normal. It's going to be like, no, maybe this segment of the economy is going to be permitted to work again, or we're going to allow um, gatherings of this many people, but it's going to be a gradual thing. I think that phases in over the summer, best case scenario, not a big turnaround. So no, now you're there. I saw a news article on like the meat packing. But the meatpacking industry, how they're starting to shutter some of those places because people are getting infected, and coming down, so they're having to, shut down operations, or go to like reduced schedules, or yeah, places closing down their plants. Well, then what's going to happen? with all that. And what's interesting is like, you take like last summer when like some estimates up to 50% of the fields weren't planted, and we were basically relying on food stores from previous years and stuff that had already been in process, um, going into this before all of this. And now this has happened. Like eventually all that's going to kind of catch up, and so anyway, all that to say that, like I said, I'm pretty excited about this gardening season. Like, it seems like there's more purpose behind it, more meaning. Like it matters now more than maybe it has before. Whereas before it was kind of an outlet, a hobby, a way to relax, to kind of have fun, and enjoy growing stuff and all that. Now it's kind of like, wow, we may actually have to depend on this, for at least a portion of our diet and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, motivated to, let's get some stuff planted, get this thing going and see what we can do with it. Assuming again that nothing bad happens and it's all going to be legal, right, and all that good stuff. So we'll see how things turn out. Well, I should probably get going because it's probably what, 10:30 now. I don't know what time it is. I know we've been on about 45 minutes or so. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we catch you later, Stingbat. Well, we'll go ahead and jump off here tonight, but I'm gonna try to get some. Well, hey there, getting started on homesteading. You were here last night, I think, weren't you? Or was that the day before? Days are running together on me. Well, anywho, um, we're gonna pack it up for tonight, and then probably try to get on here tomorrow night. Try to get some peppers transplanted and work on some other things. Maybe our lettuce will be further along tomorrow night. Let's make good progress so far. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I started a little earlier tonight, and I'm ending a little earlier tonight. And try to catch up on some sleep. I've been burning the midnight oil. We've been talking about all kinds of stuff: gardening, weed control, government. I still need to make up some Mittlighter mineral mix too for my coworker. He's going to be in the office tomorrow. Most of my office, at least on the admin side, they're working remotely, but she comes in once a week for housekeeping, like to file stuff that's basically getting left on her desk. Yeah. Hey, maybe we'll catch you tomorrow or later this week. Well, Tom, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off then. Until next time, happy gardening. Good night.